Hey, what's up everyone? Huei-Yuan coming to you from Cupertino, California. Today is May 3rd, 2020. It's our 10th and final lesson of Season 4. Thank you guys for coming in. Thanks for spending a little bit part of your Sunday. And we got a great lesson planned for you. Today we're talking about how to learn new music. You know, it's interesting in the last couple weeks, there's like a few things happening right now, and a lot of my questions I've been getting from my students have been about learning new music. And today we're going to talk about, 4 examples of how you can be applying some strategies to learning new music. I know that when I first started out, I thought learning new music just meant, kind of like working your way through it, hacking through it, and then just doing it over and over and over again until you could play it. And we're going to talk about our 10 specific strategies that you can be using to learn music more efficiently, so that you're learning it correctly the first time around and able to get it up to those tempos that you're striving for, the performance tempos, and help you kind of just troubleshoot some of the problems that tend to arise when you're hacking through music. So today there was a free handout for the lesson. It's right here. Instagram folks, hi, thanks for coming in. If you want, you can also check the stream out on Facebook and YouTube. That's where we're live right now as well. And you're going to be able to see all the music overlays. And I've gotten a little bit better at these live streams with each lesson. It's our 10th one over the last 2 months. So you can check this out on Facebook or YouTube. You can also catch us on the replay afterwards as well. And we're going to pop in and say hi to everyone in just a second. But you can pick up this free handout, hueyuan.com/free lessons on my website. You can also see all the handouts from the last 9 weeks. So last week we did a targeted timing lesson. It was like a follow-up lesson to Carl's lesson, which is part of his 8-week drummer group, which is also happening on Facebook right now. He's in week 2 of that, but we did a lesson all about that and kind of the next steps. So I know we've got a few friends coming in from 8-week drummer right now, so you can pick up that handout. And then as you're coming in, just let us know where you're watching from. These are so much about the drumming, but they're also about just kind of an international community. Friends are coming in from all over the place. So it's fun if you share this out on your social channels. Do me a favor, just hit that share button with your Facebook or your YouTube account, social media. On Instagram, you can use that little airplane button at the bottom of the screen. And of course, if you like the content, please hit like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff so that you can get more notifications. Okay, so let's say hi to some folks as they're coming in. Thanks everyone for your messages. Music and Stuff 912 says, what time is it for you? It is 8:40 over here. So if you're on the East Coast, I know this is a late stream for you. I usually do these earlier in the afternoon, like early evening, late afternoon. But today the weather was just so beautiful here in Cupertino that we took the kids out. And so we're doing a little bit later tonight. So thanks for coming in. Hello from Brazil. Hi, thanks for coming in. Thanks, guys. Instagram friends, hello. Nadnar Vivella. Hi, guys. D Min Young from Brazil. Hello. Hood. Yes, awesome, guys. All right, well, let's get into it. And we're going to pull up the handout here first. So I'm going to try some new tech things. Let me get this camera focused over here. Some new tech things today. Let's get right into it. And I sort of tested this before we started, but not a lot. So we're gonna kind of learn as we go. I'm gonna try this, and then I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna do this. Okay. All right. And we're gonna see why here in a second. Hi, Alice from Honduras. Awesome, guys. This is like so exciting. It always, it blows me away just how many people are coming in from all over the place. So thank you for tuning in. And I'm going to do my best to make this a fun lesson for you guys. Okay. So I'm trying a few new things today, and the setup is a little bit different because one of the strategies is about writing and marking in your music. And so I've hopefully got it set up to such that where we can do some markings today. But in this example, I've got 4 examples for us today. The first one is a Mitchell Peters etude from his Intermediate Snare Drum Studies book. That's etude number 16, which is also the 2021 California All-State Audition Music, which I'll be doing a series of lessons on over as well. We're doing some video lesson build-outs for our institution accounts for Drumline Chops. So this is one of those that we're doing for California this year. And then the second one is the first 2 lines from Portraits in Rhythm, which is HE number 4, also for the California All-State Music that's happening this year as well, and for another one of our institution accounts. So those 2. And then Also, you may have heard about this already, but if you haven't, like virtual drum and bugle corps is happening right now. So for all the fans of drum corps that know that the summer tour has been canceled, there's a virtual drum corps happening right now. And I've just pulled just a couple lines from the music, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Ben about this beforehand. So hopefully it's okay, Ben. But what we're going to talk about is how to learn this kind of music. So whether you're getting ready to audition somewhere, you're getting ready to learn the all-state music for next year, if you're getting ready to submit your audition video for virtual drum and bugle corps, we're going to do a snippet from the A-class line and also a snippet from the world-class line. But when you see this, it's like, how do I even start learning this piece of music? Okay, and so I've got some strategies for us to go through today. And today, earlier, right before I got on, I saw Kyle Suchiya posted his snippet or a snippet of his audition music. He's already learned like the second half of the tune. Most people don't roll out of bed just going and playing the part as well as Kyle does. So we're going to talk about, if you've just gotten the music, let us know if you're doing this, first of all, virtual drum and bugle corps. And then, what are some strategies that you use to start learning music? Okay, so let's just jump into it. I'm going to move through these first two pretty quick because we've only got about an hour. And then I'm going to kind of get to the second two because those are going to be a little bit more meaty than the first two. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first thing, whenever you look at a piece of music, the first thing you're going to want to do is just kind of get a lay of the land, like get some context as to what am I looking at? Okay, and I tell my students the first thing is you look at the title, you look at the composer, and you're kind of putting that into your musician library, your card catalog, so that the next time you see a piece by that composer, or if you see a title, it can give you some clues. Right now, this first one, intermediate snare drum studies. So you go, okay, there's intermediate, and then if you know Mitchell Peters' snare books, then you know he has a beginner snare book, an intermediate snare book, and an advanced snare book. Fun fact, when I was doing my own personal research on Mitchell Peters, he actually wrote advanced snare drum studies first, and it wasn't until many, many years later that he wrote intermediate and then went back and wrote beginner. So right out of the gate, he came swinging with advanced, and intermediate is great, especially if you're like a high school player or a college player and you're just looking for some sight reading material. A lot of time you hear people say like, oh, how do I get better at sight reading? You just have to practice it and do it a lot. Intermediate is a great book for you to just read a little bit out of each day. It's also perfect for intermediate school or middle school students to play like some solid etudes because there's some very defined musical phrases. You use a lot of common rhythms that you might see, and I find that it makes good musical sense. Lots of buzz rolls in there, so you can start working on those and doing these. So my first tip is to look at the title. Okay, let's look at the other one as well. The next one is Portraits in Rhythm, etude number 4. So you know that there's like 30 something, or is it 40? I should know the answer to this. Is it 39? I forget how many etudes there are in portraits, but this is number 4. It's written by Anthony Cerrone. When he first came out with Portraits in Rhythm, you might have it. I don't have it with me, but it's like a copy of the red cover. It's a little bit thinner, and then years later he came out with like the blue compendium with the program notes and performance notes and practice tips. And also, if you go to Mr. Cerrone's website, you can actually buy video lessons of him teaching these etudes. I remember when I first got to California and these were being used, I actually bought a few of those video lessons because I've actually never had the fortune of studying with Anthony Cerrone, but to get to hear him talk about why he wrote the etudes, how he went about constructing them, in addition to getting to read his program notes, was really, really cool. So you should check that out on his website as well if you haven't yet. And then we'll jump ahead to the next one. Obviously, this says Virtual Drum and Bugle Corps 2020, so that's for this coming year. It's written by Benjamin Piles. I actually don't know Ben personally, but we like run in the same circles. He's written 2. There's one for A class and there's one for world class. We're going to talk about both and how you can start about learning those. Okay, so regardless of what music you're learning, my first suggestion is just to read the title, get some context. In addition to the title and the composer, you're looking at the time signature, you're looking at the tempo, just so you kind of get a feel of what it's going to feel like. Because in a second, once you look at it, you're going to sight read it. That's the first thing you're going to do. And there's a couple things about sight reading. Pick a tempo where you can not stop. I mean, the main thing is once you start, you can only sight read a piece of music once, and then once you start, the key is to not stop. You've got to force yourself to keep going, as if it's a performance. And that's how you get better at sight reading. So in this tempo, it's 108. So immediately in my head, I think, okay, 108. 120 is bum, bum, so a little bit slower. This may be about 108, right? Zump, ba-dum, bum, digga, digga, dum. right? So now I have a tempo as to what the beat of the music is. And in my head, I'm going to start scanning, okay? Before I start singing through it in my head as I go through it, the first thing I want to do is just kind of scan the music and see, is there anything that's weird that I don't recognize, okay? And this is where I'm going to start trying to mark up the music here. So if, wait, work with me here. No. Bada, bing, boom, bong, bang, boom. Okay, so I'm going to take this from a beginner's perspective. So I'm an intermediate school student. I'm scanning this and I say, this first thing, like, what does that mean? For most of us, we know that that means a roll. In this case, you see 3 slashes, which technically, it can mean a couple things. Like if you were, it's like, if you see 1 note, it's double the note value, so it'd be quarter notes. If you see 2 slashes, it'd be double that, so it'd be eighth notes. And so if you see 3 slashes, it can mean, but in this instance, we know that it's a buzz roll, right? So for a beginner, if you don't know that, what you're doing is you're scanning just the music in general. So like, what do I know and what do I not know? And if you see these symbols or musical notations that you don't recognize, anything that you don't see, anything that you see that you don't recognize, you're going to want to take a moment and kind of just take stock of that. Be like, okay, I don't know what that is, so I'll either need to look it up or do something else when I get there. I'm just scanning for anything that's weird, okay? For some students, this dotted rhythm might be a new rhythm for them. 3, 3, 4, and, right? And I'm scanning, and then I notice that, okay, the dynamic changes to piano right there. This rhythm might be a little bit tricky for some people when they first start. But as you're scanning, you're also starting to notice some of these patterns. Like you see that E and A, and this rhythm, by the way, is 3 E and A. 3 and A, that happens once in the 3rd bar and the 4th bar. I'm scanning, and I do another quick scan. It happens here and it happens here. And you say, oh, so he's using E and A 4 or E and A 3 or E and A 1 as a rhythmic motive as it's coming back and forth, okay? So in my scan, I start to notice that if I figure out that that's E and when I see it later, then I don't really have to worry about that, right? And then flams here might be something else for someone that's a challenge, right? If you don't know how to play flams or you don't play them as often. So you're also taking stock of like, what are the things that I'm gonna have to work on in order to play this etude as I keep going. So now real quick for Instagram folks, if you're watching this right now and you're like, what is he looking at and what is he talking about? You can go over to Facebook, facebook.com/Huei-Yuan, or you can go to YouTube, youtube.com/Huei-Yuan. It's also on Twitter, on Periscope as well. But you can come on and see the music. Maybe someday I'll have it set up to where there's a gigantic projector back here and you can see this on Instagram. But until they have these screen overlays, you can check it out on one of those other platforms. Thanks for coming. Jason says, what are some ways to play faster? Oh, that's a great question, Jason. There's actually a lesson from like 2 or 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, chops, how to build chops. And you should check out that lesson because we did a whole video lesson about that. And the main thing is just to know your thresholds and bump through those. Okay, good question. Okay, so flams, and then, oh, this is kind of cool. Let me show you guys a little bit behind the scenes thing. This here is one of the things, Dre, if you're catching this after fact, this is an idea from my buddy Dre. He mentions how a lot of times with his beginners, he's got to write out the hand speed or the subdivisions that beginning players are playing under the buzz roll. Like a lot of times when you play a buzz roll and you go for an experienced player, you'd go 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. And you probably play 3 and a 4 and a 1, or right. But for a beginner, when they hear that, they just go, "Whoa, that's a lot of notes!" Like zzz, stop. And what sometimes my beginners will go, and they'll just move their hands as fast as they can. You say, like, no. There's like a rhythm that you're playing underneath it. So one of the things that we're experimenting for our Drumline Chops Institution accounts is creating those educational notes for the students within the synchronized video and the notation. Okay, all right, big a dig it up. You see, this is like a very Mitchell Peters thing where he plays the same rhythm back to back, but he displaces the beat. We talked about the E and A already, and then we've got a roll, and then there's another E and a da. Okay, so that's kind of phase one, is just to do a quick scan, get it context, and then if I was going to sight read this, then I would start singing through it in my head. My eyes gravitate to where there's the most black on the page, and I'm like, okay, that's probably the most difficult section, and we're going to see this here in just a second. That's the most difficult section, so I need to kind of look at that section as I'm doing this. but then I'll just kind of start singing through it and hearing it in my head. So bzzum, ba-dum, bum, 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 digga-digga-dum. Digga-dum, digga-dum, digga-dum. And notice that I'm hearing the dynamics and the inflection as I'm internalizing this before I even start playing. Digga-dum, 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 bum, bum, digga-digga-dum, digga-digga-dum. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, mezzo forte. Bzzz, digga-digga-dum, 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 dum-ga-dum-gum-be-yum, digga-digga-dum, bum, bum. Okay? And then, you know, for me, I would be able to start you this, but also I've taught this piece like 1,000 times. So the next step would just be to play it, right? So you can try this with me. 1, 2, and 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, and that's the first 2 lines of Etude number 16. There's a whole page of it to go, right? And there's a lot of things that you can do with this on the other strategies that we're going to talk about. But we're going to move ahead to the next section or the next example to talk about the next strategies. Okay, any questions about that? If there are, just fire them out as we're coming through. What's up, Mike? Thanks for coming to the room. Hi, Montserrat. Great to see you. Danny says, what kind of drum pad and where can I buy one? This is a pad from our good friends at Beetle Percussion. You can go to beetlepercussion.com and check these out. Urinson Laura, hello. Thanks for coming in, Urinson. Yeah, so any questions that are coming in? And then, guys, if you do have questions, like earlier Jason asked about how to play faster, if you have questions, hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end and we can do a little bit of open Q&A at the very end. Okay, so let's review. Strategy number 1 is context. You've got the title, the composer, the style, the tempo, the meter, anything you need to know to start audiating what the piece is supposed to sound like. Number 2, you're scanning for the easy things, for the hard things. What are the things that I'm going to have to work on more? If you're scanning, like, we're only doing 2 lines, right? But typically I'll read through the entire piece the first time I get a new piece for the first time. And I'll just, you know, kind of crunch my way through the whole thing from beginning to the end. You know, the same way when I get a new CD for the first time, I will wait to listen to it when I have a chance to sit down and listen to the CD in its entirety without any interruptions. So it used to be that would be like a road trip or a flight or something where I want to experience it from top to bottom. And then as you're listening to it or as you're sight reading through it, you start making notes of, for me at least, the hardest sections, because those are the sections that you don't... I used to learn music from beginning to end, like chronologically in the way it happened. But now I look at the music and I go, okay, this is a really hard section. You should do the same thing too if you're a teacher and you're working with your students. This section of the music is very difficult. So we need to start with this section sooner than later because it's going to take us longer to learn it and master it and clean it, right? So if you start chronologically, you might get, 3 weeks out from the performance and you haven't even started working on that hard part. So that's why you want to be mindful about as you're scanning which sections are easy, which sections are hard. Okay, we talked about sight reading, don't stop, and I'll mention a couple things. So I sight read through that first piece, but also, and we're going to sight read through this next part. I know some of you might have been looking at this already. We're going to sight read through this next part as well. And the key about sight reading is 2 things. One is to look ahead. So don't look at what you're playing, but look ahead of what you're about to play, right? And then it's really just about being able to recall patterns quickly. Like when you see a thing, you don't want to have to be able to go, like in that previous example, if you looked at this ianda, oh, I should have just always put it back on top so I don't lose it or have to search for it. But like this rhythm, if you see that rhythm for the first time, and because it's the first time you've seen it, all of a sudden you're going, wait, that's what's that? What are those 2 little flaggy things called? And okay, that's 1 and that's 2, and okay, I guess that's beat 3, and then I guess that's like 3 anda, or is it e-anda, or what? Like you don't have time to do that as you're sight reading, right? You just have to be able to recognize it and say like, oh, that's e-anda. Okay, let me back out of this. So, no. So being able to recall those patterns quickly, that also goes back to like how do you get really good at sight reading? I was watching Roger Carter's Fundamentals Friday through Percussive Arts this past Friday. Such a good lesson. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go back and check that out. It's on the Percussive Arts. I think I watched it on YouTube. It's probably on their Facebook as well. But check out that lesson. But he talked about just like reading as much as you can. And I remember I did that a lot in high school. I just read a bunch. But I also know that, I think of my friend Billy Spicer, who marched at Cavaliers before I marched. Billy marched in 99 and 2000, maybe, and he didn't march in 2001. I think those are right, those 2 years. But Billy tells the story of how, like, when he was in high school, he just had a gigantic, I think it was like a 3-inch binder, and he would just fill it from cover to cover with licks. Billy is notorious for knowing, like 81 Madison Scouts and 72 Velvet Knights. I don't know if those are actual years, but he knows licks from every drum corps from all these random years because he had this big binder. And he said he would just play through this binder from top to bottom like every day. So he would just read, and he's like a reading machine. So you get familiar with these rhythms the more you do them. Okay? Recognize present, and then you can practice sight reading. So practicing is a skill. That's the most important thing you have to remember. Practicing is a skill. You can get better at it. It's not I'm either good at it or I'm bad at it. You can get better at it the more you do it. Okay? All right. A lot of talking in this first half, and we're going to get to more playing here in just a moment, but these are kind of the things, the strategies that you want to use, and then we're going to show you how to use them here in just a second. Okay? All right, so the next step is this portraits and rhythm. Let's imagine that you've sight read it already, you're doing things. Now you've got to learn it, and in this instance, it's going to be even more important here in just a second when we go to these drumline excerpts in just a moment. But if I was learning this, I'm a high school student now, preparing for All-State for next year, right? I might say like, oh, I don't know what this thing is, right? This 4-stroke rough or triplet rough, digga-digga. And there's a couple seconds that you can do. And then the question is like, can you do it consistently? I'm doing a right, left, right sticking here in this case. Let me just switch to concert sticks for a second. Right? You've got to be able to do 4, 8, 16 of them in a row. You can play them alternating as well. Left, right, left, right. Right? You also just have to work that consistency. Fun little anecdote. This year, my middle school band director, Mr. Greg Dick, who's been teaching at Friendswood High School for the last, I don't even know now, 20 plus years, I would guess. But he's been teaching for 40 plus years, and he's retiring this year. And he was the one that taught me how to play these 4-stroke roughs when I was in 7th grade, because we had made Texas All-State that year. And for the All-State convention, one of the pieces we played was March the Belgian Paratroopers. And when I got the notice that he was retiring this year, or heard that he was retiring this year, I like went back and listened to that piece of music, because in the beginning of that piece it starts right, and you have to play a ton of these 4-stroke roughs in a row. And I remember him saying to me like, okay, Huei-Yuan, I'm giving you the 4-stroke rough part. You've got to master how to play these. I was like, wait, what am I doing? How do these go? And I played them open too. I was like, right? So like little 7th grade Huei is in his bedroom going, right? I'm already in like orchestral excerpt mode. And man, I remember I nailed it for the All-State performance. So thanks again to Mr. Dick for teaching me those and then having me master them. So learn it under tempo. So you might have to learn this slower. And with this opening 2 lines, not so much, because these are this is like the overture. It's the opening statement. It's not super dense like you'll see in the next couple excerpts that we're going to look at. But definitely what happens to most students is they see dotted chord note equals 56, or they say chord note equals 200, and they think that's the speed that they should be practicing it at. It's like, no. Don't be afraid to cut that tempo in half and go half the speed that you're learning, because this is, I find, what separates a lot of like beginners from professionals, right? Professionals know how slowly they need to take it in order to learn it correctly, and then speeding it up becomes very simply, because you're investing more time up front learning it correctly. And then when you start to speed it up, your hands aren't confused because you've already programmed them to do all the right things. Your brain knows what to think about and what to notice. You've already worked out all the details, so that as you speed up, it should be very painless. Early on in my career, I would learn things too fast, or I would learn them at a speed where I would constantly have to start and stop. I'd break and start and break and stop. And you're actually teaching your hands to stop and start and stop and start. And you're like unintentionally teaching your hands the wrong thing. And then maybe you finally get through it, but as you get faster, you crumble. Like you're not even able to get within 80% of the performance tempo, right? So the key is to spend more time up front, learn it correctly, and then speeding it up will be very easy down the fact. Okay, learn under tempo, use a metronome. Okay, use a metronome. This goes without saying. I know some of us are not practicing with the metronome. I know. I know. We all know, right? And you just got to do it. There's no reason for you to not be practicing with your metronome. I mean, literally every excuse, Mr. Dick has been on my mind a lot because I heard that he's retiring this year. He used to say this all the time. Excuses are, and I've heard both. Like he used to say armpits and he used to say feet. But excuses are like armpits. Everyone's got two of them and they both stink, right? So your excuses for you can't find your metronome or there aren't any batteries inside of them, those stink. Just get your metronome and do the work. You have to do it so that you know that you're practicing correctly, okay? So we turn the metronome on. This is dotted quarter equals 56. You may go faster, you may go slower, but as you're practicing, you need to practice. And don't be afraid to go slower if you're learning this, okay? So this excerpt sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so for this takes us to our next part, which is mark your music. As you're looking at this, okay, let me pull this over here for a second. A lot of times I'll give music to my students, and I try to have them order the books as much as possible. So it's super important that you have the originals to the music that you're learning. Sometimes you'll have to make a photocopy just for speed's sake, or like you need it like right then. But as a musician, you want to start building your own personal library of the music that you're performing, so that you can mark them. I know that when I was a student, I would see my teacher's books, and you can just see the years of practicing, teaching, and use that those books have made through, and it's a part of that history with the music. I find the same thing for all the music that I play, and I have my students play. I really encourage my students to buy the music if they can, and then you write your name on the inside cover, so property of Huei-Yuan Pan. And then you see those copies of music, and then when they borrow it from me, I say, hey, make sure I get this back. And then you have to write their name down, because otherwise, if they don't remember to give back to you, you got to remember to follow up with that. But anyway, you should write in your book. If you get a clean piece of music, and it comes back the following week in your private lesson, and there are no marks in your music, I say, hey, where's the work? Just like math, you got to show your work. And part of, I didn't learn this until later, but part of learning music is making little discoveries along the way. Discoveries of things that you want to remember, notes to yourself, finding the phrases. There's a couple things. At a base level, it's just like figuring out where the beats are, right? So that this is beat 1, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And those are the big beats. I've had some friends who just make like lines where the big beats are. So now they know where the subdivisions are, and this is 2 and 3, so this is bump. In the second measure, if this is 4, that's on beat 5. 1, 2, and 3. And I do this with all the beginners too. Oh, sorry. With beginners, they have to know where all the counts are, right? 4 and 5, 6 and 1. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, in this section that we're here, we're on the second line now. You might need to figure this out, right? So that's an eighth note. 1, there's 6 eighth notes per bar because we're in 6/8. 1, 2, it's a quarter note, so it's worth 2 eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, and this is another quarter note. 4, 5, 6. Okay, so you say, okay, I figured that out. So I don't play on 5, I don't play on 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And then in a broader scheme, let me erase all this, right? In a broader scheme, what I see here is that this is one long phrase, this first line. Run out, Ba zum digga dum bum boo yum digga dum digga digga dum bzzz yum bum bum boom bim bum bum bum, right? And then down here we have two smaller phrases, right? Because this phrase and this phrase are the same. Dum brum brum brum, and then do do di da da brum brum brum, and then the reverse. Bra 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 bra. Right? So now you've memorized it because you took a second to analyze what's going on. You've got the A theme here, and then you've got the B and the C, or B prime, right? So this would be like A. Sorry, let me go back out. We're going to play here in just a second, so stick with me. This is A, this is B, and this is A, and this is B prime. It's a little bit different. It's like the reverse of the second run, right? So without looking at it now, I've already memorized the second line. I know it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, I'll put it on the beat. Crescendo, bum 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 bum. Opposite, bum 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 bum. Right. So that's a way of memorizing music. I get lots of questions about how do you memorize music, and this analyzing process. You know, you've got to give your brain a framework to start plugging these things in, so you can make sense of it all. Right. I remember in 9th grade we read A Tale of Two Cities. The best of times, it was the worst of times. Right. And we had to memorize that opening paragraph. It was horrible because like I was just sitting there reading it and like trying to drill it over and over and over again. And my older brother said something. He's like, "Do you know what all these words mean? Like, do you know what incredulity means? You should know what you're saying, and it'll make more sense as you're reading. Because you also know they're opposites of each other, right? So if you can remember one, it might help cue you to remember what the other of the is. Same thing here. If you can create some structure in your mind of what it is that you're playing, and it makes sense to you, then you're less likely to have a memory slip, and you'll learn it correctly the first time. Okay? All right. That was tip number 6. Number 7 I already did, which is to sing the part. I mentioned this earlier. You want to sing it with the inflection, with the dynamics, with the style and the phrasing of what you're ultimately going to try to express with your instrument. And this goes for percussionists, but you see wind players and brass players do this all the time. Percussionists, I find that we don't do this enough because you're like, oh, well, I don't sing. It's like, dude, come on. If you're a musician, you've got to sing so that you can express the music. And then the less friction there is between what you're singing and making your hands just do what you're singing or hearing in your head, the better off you're going to be. And then we just talked about strategy number 8, which is to analyze and identify the music. Okay, now it's 8. It's got like a part 2 to it, which we're going to go to here in the next second. So let me ask if there are any questions first, and then we're going to move into this next excerpt down below. Okay, I heard something pop up. Hey, Christian, how's it going? Saludos. Welcome, and thanks for coming into the room, Christian. And I think I see a question over here. What piece are we looking at? Mike Wozniak drums. Hey, Mike. We were just looking at Portraits in Rhythm, Etude number 4, and now we're moving into like the second half of the lesson, which is going to be about virtual drum and bugle corps, and we're going to be looking at both the A-class audition piece and the world-class audition piece. We're just going to look at a little snippet of both. I'm going to throw these last three or four strategies to you. And again, if you want to see the music as we're doing this, all the overlays, you can come on to Facebook and YouTube. The stream is happening over there as well. Okay? All right. Oh, and then Instagram, thanks for those hearts, guys. Likes, and you can see on Facebook and YouTube those little likes and hearts coming up over here. So thanks as you guys are tapping those. I can see those coming up periodically. Okay, let's look at this next one. So we're looking at the A-class audition etude, and this is important because if you can incorporate these strategies earlier than later, sooner than later in your education as a musician, when you get to this world-class audition, like I had specifically a student who got the music this weekend. He was going to audition for world-class, and he's like, I don't even know where to start with this thing. Like, I haven't even seen half I don't even know what that means. It's going by way too fast. I don't know how I'm going to learn this part. So we said, okay, well, let's look at the A-class audition etude also. And basically, the strategies that you would use to learn the A-class audition etude are the same strategies that you would use for the world-class audition etude, okay? So we're looking at it. I'm doing a scan. I'm getting 170, so just so I can get an idea of what it's going to sound like I probably would not play through it at 170 because a lot of times this drumline drum corps music is like way faster at performance tempo than what you would actually be able to learn in that, even close. So I would just play through it very, very slowly. But just so I have an idea of where I'm headed. Okay, so that's where we're headed, right? And then the next step is to start playing through it. So I'm going to play through this very slowly. I'm going to pick a tempo to where I don't need to stop. That's the key. I'm going to pick a tempo where I don't need to stop, or I'm going to do my best not to stop. Slower than you think, probably. And you're going to start thinking ahead to, let's just talk about strategy 8 first, which is to analyze and identify exercises. So similar to in the beginning when we talked about like, okay, what is this? What am I familiar with? What am I unfamiliar with? There are certain things when I scan this, I'm going like, okay, that's an exercise I'm going to need to practice. So in the first, let's play through it once and then we'll break it down, okay? So if I were sight reading this, and I'm going to put myself in the shoes of a high school student, okay? So I would start at a tempo where I don't need to stop. What does that mean? Okay, so mezzo forte, jung, dun, jung, dun, dun, jung, piano, da 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 dum bum, da ga dum bum, da ga dum, bing bum dum, da 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 da, da ga dum bum bum. Okay, now if you did that with me, you only have one chance to sight read it, because if I play it again for a second time now, I'm not sight reading anymore. I'm practicing at this point, right? So I personally love sight reading. Like one of my favorite things to do in a large ensemble setting is the first read, you know, like the first rehearsal, and you just downbeat and you play through the pieces if it's the performance, because you only get one shot to perform that way. And you know, that's the way they do it in film scores, you know, film scoring sessions. You get one shot, you are typically sight reading also. You're not getting the music beforehand, like whatever pops up on the stand, you just boom, play it. It's got to sound like the final product the first time through. So it's like a fun game you can play with yourself. And eventually you get to the point where your sight reading ability level is above most things that you get. And so that, you know, you're just able to play stuff right out of the gate. Sometimes you'll still get stuff like in this world-class piece, there are some things I was like, wait, what is that? And then you have to break it down, which is also an important skill set that we're going to talk about here in a second. Okay, so tip number 8, which is analyze the exercise. Identify the exercises that you're going to need to work on, right? So in this instance, you have jun, dun, 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 jun, jun. Okay, so you've got this right hand flam to left hand flam, and with beginners, I'd be like, okay, you see how your flams are up here, your grace notes are up here, and everything looks the same. You've got to get that down, right? So let's just get that accent pattern down, and then there's probably some sort of flam accent breakdown that we need to be practicing. Right? And then once you figure out this skill set, right, basically you'll get to the point where you can add flams to any accent pattern that you see. Right? So I would make up an exercise for myself to work that pattern. I would do like something where there's a flam and there's no flam, there's a flam, there's no flam. And I'm making sure that the structure is not changing because I'm adding the flam. Grace notes stay down, clear 2 height separation between my accents and my inner beats. Okay? All right, next line. Okay, so this is important that you're programming your hands. If you're at piano, it's basically just a progression up to forte, that last notes. So I add an extra drag there. So as I'm playing this, I'm partly like Terminator style trying to scan the music and imprint it in my brain as I'm playing it. I'm not doing what I did in high school, which is just mindlessly looping it over and over again and just hoping that the music sticks to my brain, right? You've got to say like, okay, it's a right flam, 2 right flams, it's 2 left flams. The right flams are on the downbeat, the left flams are on the upbeats, and then it's like tap, tap, roll, dot, dot. On 4 and it's crescendo. The release is at forte. The first downbeat of measure 2 is piano, right? I'm being as vivid as I can in the like articulation of what it is. It's not just like I'm hoping it sticks in my hands that I'm playing, right? So, oh, it's mezzo forte at the beginning. I forgot to mention that. So it's mezzo forte. So I'm not looking at the music anymore, and I haven't practiced this excerpt So you're kind of seeing me digest it live right now. So it's mezzo forte, jung, jung, piano right there, forte in that last release. We're going slow, and you're programming these heights into your brain and your hands now. Because guess what? When you go fast, when we hit 170, you're not gonna have time to think about any of this. Your hands just need to know these anchor points and kind of where you're going and what the overall like shape of the music that you're playing is. Because in the next example that we need to get to here very quickly, the music is going by so fast and it's so dense that you have to program this stuff into your hands at the slower tempo. The rhythms have to be, immaculate. The sound quality's got to be there. The flow, all that has to happen with each stair step. If you get to 200 and you look like you're working to death to play the part, it's because somewhere between the tempo that you learned it and 200, you started getting tense and you went too fast too soon, and that's why you're stressing. Okay? All right. So the next part, do put it at the end, so I know it's syncopation. Okay, and then, so that's a left accented roll. So if you've never practiced accented rolls, where did I learn those? I learned those when I was gridding 5-stroke rolls through a triplet grid. Right, it's figuring out how to get 2 notes without crushing down that second note. If you've worked that before, then you don't need to work that, all right? Or maybe you'll just touch on that within the exercise. But if you've never learned that piece of vocabulary before and you're seeing it for the first time, you'd be like, oh, I'm crushing that double. You might have to work through that, right? So again, you're marking your music and you're saying, okay, what are the things that I know how to do? All right, jugga, jugga, da, jugga, jugga, da. Okay, I need to practice those flams because my teacher tells me that I always pop my left flam, so I'm going to work those, right? I'm role playing here, right? Although I do sometimes pop my left flams. I need to work those. And then I remember that the first time it's piano crescendo forte, and the second time it's mezzo piano crescendo forte, right? So you're just making notes to yourself as you're playing this, so that when you come and practice the next day, you're not having to start over and go like, oh, what am I working on again? And this is the main thing that you need to remember, and I want to say it now so I don't forget at the end of the lesson, which is when you finish practicing at the end of the day, you should already know, or you should take a moment at the very end of your practice session to write some notes down for yourself on what you're going to practice the next day or your next practice session. So that when you start practicing the next practice session, you're not going, oh, what do I need to work on today? And then you just like do that thing where you kind of play through stuff and then figure out what you need to be working on. That's a waste of time. So while it's fresh in your mind, you're saying like, oh, those left flams were not good today. And I can't play that 5-lit section, which is what we're going to look at next. I can't play that 5-lit section. I need to keep shedding on that tomorrow. Okay? I haven't seen any questions come through. Kevin, how's it going? Gabriel Nunez, Sal, thanks for tagging people, Kevin. Appreciate that. So if you know what you're going to be struggling with, and this is kind of the next bit, we only have time to look at one section of this piece, right? But I just started looking at this afternoon. So I'm going to do all the things that we talked about. It's 200. There's no way that you're going to be able to sight read. Maybe I would not be able to sight read this at 200. Yeah, I can't sight read at 200, right? So the stickings are going by so fast that you want to just make sure that you're learning it correctly. And you wouldn't want to learn it at 200 because you're going to miss heights. You're going to miss all those details, those nuances that if you misprogram into your hands in the beginning, God help you, because you're going to have to relearn it, and relearning it or trying to change something that you learned incorrectly is way harder than just learning it correctly in the beginning, right? I need to get this quote down because I think of it all the time. Whoa, Amber Alert. Conquer Scream, what is that? Bomb Squad detail. Oh my God, that's not good. It's got a Bomb Squad alert. Congress Springs. I don't even know where that is. Okay. Hi guys. Hi. Okay, that's a good tip. Great. I'm glad that helped. Okay, so where was I? Relearning things incorrectly. Oh, that quote. It's like, give me 6 hours to chop down the tree. I'll spend the first 5 sharpening it. So that what I equate that. I don't know if that's exactly. That's the gist of the quote. I should find out. Is it Abraham Lincoln, George Washington? It's a president. Like Steve said, of what I can remember about. But anyway, the idea is that a lot of times, and this is what I thought when I was younger, which was like, oh, I don't have a lot of time. I need to learn it faster. So I need to go faster. And you're just causing more problems for yourself. It's better to invest more time up front, applying it slowly, learning it correctly. Like, if you have, let's say, 100% of a pie of your time that you can spend learning this piece, I would say spend 60, maybe even 70% of it learning it slowly, right? Like you're just learning it and making it as musical and expressive and beautiful and touch-oriented as you can. And then isn't until, like the last 30, 40% of the time you're, starting to speed things up. And the speed up process should be very, easy if you're doing it gradually over time. But spend more time slower. It just works. It works, okay? All right. It's hard, though, because you have to force yourself to practice with the metronome and force yourself to play slowly. All right, so I'm going to learn this now in front of everybody, which, for fear of embarrassing myself, I hope I can read this. But, okay, so I'm going to learn, so bum, bum, da-da-da-dum, ba. And notice that I'm not putting in a sort of rhythm, I'm just reading through the sticking, right? It's a chord note triplet, so bum, 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 boom, ba, bim, bum, boom, ga. So I sing it first so I know what it's supposed to sound like. Okay, and that left hand is what's up, and there's a tenuto in that right hand release. So I'm going to play that right just a little bit higher. If I'm at an inner beat height here, I'm going to come up just a little bit. So it's like, it's on its way to that shot. And there's going to be a lift on that, right? Okay, next bar, mezzo piano, still in the center. So mezzo piano inner beats, there's an accent. So I'm basically going to play these at piano inner beat height. Okay, so what are these? What rhythm is it? That's like it's not a choo-choo. Okay, it's a paradiddle sticking. It's like a book report without the downbeat drags. So book reports are, right? So this is where it's important where if you have a well of vocabulary to draw from, then when you're learning new music, you're going to like, oh, that's like this thing and that's like this thing. And that's part of, why you get better at sight reading the more you do it. When you read books, you're not having to sound out the word cat and dog every time you see it because you've seen those words enough times where you just see it and you're like, oh, that's cat, that's dog, right? And that's fox, which is kind of like, is it a cat? Is it a dog? Oh, it's like a wolf, right? And they're like, I know what wolves are. Wolves are kind of like coyotes, right? And you've got these relationships that you're drawing. So it's a paradiddle sticking. It's like a book report without the drags. And it's triplet bass. And then you come in on the downbeat. So, and that's not the end of the phrase, though. Forte release right there. So, okay? So, in my mind, I need to plant a flag on that forte. That's forte. That's not quite the arrival point, though. I feel like the arrival point is to be seen, right? Because I'm still kind of like analyzing as I'm learning this. So it sounds like shot is the peak of the phrase here, right? So I have. So here, okay, this is where you're about to make a mistake. Okay, if the younger version of Huei would make a mistake, which is like I've played it through 3-4 times now, and now I'm gonna want to go faster. I'm gonna want to go, which I can do. I was about to say could do, but can't do because I just did it. But don't do that because what's gonna happen is all that that good work you did is going to start to deteriorate and degrade the more of those that you do, right? It's better to spend just 10 more reps at that slower tempo, and you're ingraining all those heights in the flow and the hand-to-hand timing, the way your hands are moving between the spaces. You're ingraining all those good habits that you want to show up later when we go fast at this slower tempo. Okay, so forte, pop, pop, and then let me just add the next part. Paradiddle diddle dot. Okay, all right, so this is a good note to mention here. So this is where that analyzing piece comes into play. So even though, I'll show you guys what I'm looking at here. Even though these 16th notes are all like strung together, let me just zoom in here. Right? Even though these are all strung together, that's not like the phrase. There's another phrase that starts here. Shot. Right? So there's actually, I mean, you want to think over the bar line, but that's a new piece of vocabulary right there. So what do you have here? Paradiddle diddle. Oh, I know what that is. Paradiddle diddle. And it starts with the drag here. Okay, so in my mind, I'm thinking, digga paradiddle diddle. Digga paradiddle diddle. Digga dunk dunk, digga dunk dunk, digga dunk dunk ga. Right, so it's two things that I then connect together to make a longer phrase. Digga paradiddle diddle, digga dunk dunk, digga dunk dunk, digga dunk dunk ga. And on those digga dunk dunk, digga dunk dunk, it's digga mezzo, digga forte, back down to piano, digga fortissimo. So digga mezzo forte, forte, fortissimo, digga dun dun, digga dun dun, digga fortissimo, shot, which is probably like fortissimo plus a little bit of extra, and then you get to this 5-lip bit, which is what we're going to work on. Okay, I said I wasn't going to break down this opening section, but I kind of did it already, and we are blowing into this lesson. So let me just play this first part one more time for my own sake. Okay, so stay down. Those are all downstrokes. That's a downstroke in the left hand. Okay, got that part. Next part. Okay, so at this tempo, and I would say if it's marked at 200, you should not have any qualms about going 100. Oh, which is what I'm doing. Oh, that's a little bit slower. Because here's the thing, if you can play this entire, it's probably, I don't know, 6, 7, or 8 lines, this audition excerpt. These are just the first 2 lines. If you can play the whole thing through without stopping at 100 with great sound quality, beautiful flow, accents, inner beats, the right stickings, and you look and feel confident and your hands are not freaking out, then you just keep doing that, right? And you clean it, and then once it's really, really, really good, and you're like, I got this. At that point, there's probably a good chance that you already have chunks of it memorized. And then as you gradually slow up or speed up gradually over time, I don't mean just like in one practice session. Maybe like today it's 100, tomorrow it's 108, 116. Like we've got a month. These videos aren't due until June. If you sped up like 8 beats over the next 25 days, you're going to hit your 200 mark very easily, right? So again, I can't stress this enough, and this is just as much a reminder for my former self as it is for my students and anyone else who might be watching. Or maybe your teachers told you this and you didn't believe them, and now you're hearing it from someone else and you're like, oh, that's what he was talking about. You just got to practice slower, and instill all those correct habits that you want to show up in your performance later at the faster tempo. Because if it's not happening at the slow tempo, it's definitely not going to happen at the faster tempo. Okay? All right, any questions? Man, I feel like I'm just rambling here. And we're going to be chopping this up for some other stuff later, but no questions. Mike says, this is great. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for letting me know that this is helping. Okay, so we're going to spend, maybe we should just do another lesson on this. I might just wrap here. What today's lesson was going to be about, and I think that's what I'm going to do, because this next part is going to take a little bit of time. But I'll give you kind of the preview. On next week's episode, actually this is the final 10th and final episode of season 4. So I have an idea for another video series called How I Learned This Lick. And it's basically this, where I find music that I'm working on and I just share with you guys how I learn it. And hopefully it sounds so boring, but I know for me at least, I like hearing this kind of stuff about other people, how they approach learning things, kind of the process that they go through, and then I pick up little nuggets here and there and I incorporate them into my own practice. But I think what it would be is like me filming some of these like teaching videos on how to learn something like this, and then cutting them up into chunks that people could digest them in those chunks as you're playing through them. But if that's something that you'd be interested in doing, maybe people can send me licks that they're having trouble with. Like you have music that you're working on, you have your all-state music that you're working on. Like, I don't know how to learn these 2 bars, and then I do an episode of how I learned this lick, and it's about something that you send in to me. If that's something that you're interested, send me a direct message. Let me know. Leave something down below in the comments, and maybe we'll make a series out of that. Okay. All right. So really briefly, I see questions coming in. Owen says, "Hey, what's up, Owen? I have sort of a general question on a certain thing I see often, but I can never really play well. It's whenever I see a flam on a diddle, either starting a roll or just on its own." Yeah, Owen. So we typically call those cheeses or charles or flam stutters or flam fives. Let me answer that for you after I do this little 5-lit bit. But I would also recommend that you check out the Percussive Arts Society, like Facebook or YouTube. There was a Fundamentals Friday presentation just this past Friday by Roger Carter, and he did breakdowns for that rudiment that you're looking at right now. And the lesson he did does not get much better than what he did. So I would reference that first, but let me show you some stuff right after we do this 5-lit bit also. Okay, so Owen, check that out. I find like sometimes, if you guys have seen Wreck-It Ralph, it's one of the movies that we have on rotation in the house with the kiddos, but there's a guy who's like the information desk, and people ask him questions when they make it to the internet, and sometimes I feel like that guy. Owen asks me a question, I just say like, go that way and watch this video. So, okay, this 5-lit section, which very slowly... Okay, there's a whole lesson that we could do on just this 5-lit section. That lick from O2 that I always play, the Cavalier snare break from O2, that cadenza-like section was 5-lits. And this was a pain in the butt to clean that summer, because everyone's interpretation of the 5 was a little bit different. When you've got these like hertas and these drags, sometimes they get a little bit slurred and open, things get weird, right? There's a way to practice this section, very, very specifically. And the first step to that is just to know the skeleton sticking. So in this section down here, these 3 stickings, and again, this handout is a free download on my website, huei-yuan.com/free lessons, linked in my Instagram, linked in all the videos down below. You can download this handout, but those 3 stickings are all the stickings in this. So this first sticking, right, left, right, right, left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the sticking for this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? The next sticking, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, which is the same 2, 3 grouping. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That sticking is here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And then this third sticking here, which there's no accent on the downbeat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the underlying sticking for this herta. Oop, did I not change color? For that pattern and that pattern. So if you practice these 3 stickings, which you need to be able to play like butter, right? And I've got 2 breakdowns on how you can go about practicing that down below here. right? But you have to be able to play these 3 stickings like butter before you even start hacking your way through that 5-lit section. Because I can tell you at 200, it's going by so fast, it's so dense that if there's any sort of tension or weirdness in your hands, it's going to show up in that section. Okay? All right, Instagram, we're about to end. I want to say real quick, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good weekend, guys. Bye. All right, YouTube and Facebook, we're going to keep going for just a couple more minutes. If you do have any open questions or Q&As, we can do that here at the end. Percussion says, kaboom! Kabum was that was definitely not the part. I was just making stuff up. But Kabum was the street beat that we played in Cavi's 02? 03? One of those years, written by Jim Bailey. And the count off, the first measure is, and that shot's on the a 4. So 1. All right, let's see if I can do it. Sorry, I'm derail ADD teacher. Right, and then Mouse Jason Payne would tap off with, I don't even know how he played the opening lick, because he'd have to go A1, but he would tap off with that opening lick. So he would go. And then everyone would go, bucka-burr, 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 ga bucka-burr, 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 ga. There, all right. 02, I think. Dre, I think that was 02. That sounds right. Dylan Snyder says, Evan Bundy. Oh, thanks for tagging Evan Dylan. Mike Wasden says, this is great. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Okay, so let me just play these two variations real quick so you get a feel for them. We're at this... oh man, this would be such a cool lesson. We're running out of time, but let me just show you guys what I kind of figured out. No, what is going on? Okay, this thing. Can you guys see this? Okay, this is what I was playing around with earlier. This, I feel like this is an Instagram post waiting to happen. Maybe I should just make this theme quicker. First sticking. Check. Next sticking. Next sticking. Check. Sticking. Who would not want to practice your 5-lets with that, right? And then there's all these things that you would start layering in, right? So that's your skeleton. You can play all those stickings, and then, for example, that second sticking, right? You have, or the third sticking. You add the herta, sticking, diddle. Ah. Right? And this is 300 at 5-lets. So I'll give you an example. If the show tempo is at, let me exit out of this for a second. If the show tempo is at 200 and you're practicing at 100, okay, so the chord note's at 100, and you've got to play 5-lets at 100. But the 5-let is like, it's 5 over 2 quarter notes. So if your practice tempo is 100, then the half note, which is the space of the 5-let, is 50. I think I lost some of you there, but just bear with me. 50 is the space of the 5-let, and then there's 5 notes happening in that space of 50. So 5 times 50 is 250. If your practice tempo is 60, which means the show tempo is at 120 now, 60 times 5 is 300, which is what we're at now. This is 300. where did it go? 300, right? So now we're practicing at a show tempo of 120. I know I lost some of you guys in all that math gibberish that I shouted out at you, but let me see if I can do this. I'm still learning how to use this. Bear with me. I thought I should be able to pull this out. Go like this. And then I thought I did it earlier. Hold on. Maybe do it with the pencil. I need to push and hold. No, there was a way to have it show up at the same time. Come on. No. I can pull the music up over here. Part. Ah. Okay, let me model some of the things I'm actually talking about here, which is one of the things that I'm noticing. Let me get rid of all this stuff. Is that even though it's like a string of fives, what I see is I see a phrase here, and then I see a longer phrase here. So it's actually two phrases. And the first phrase is the forte release. Okay, that's one arrival point. And then the next arrival point is so all together. Okay, and so maybe your win for today is that you can play the part. You know, just for kicks, I might try like. Okay, and quick tip, if you were practicing this, you wouldn't go from 300 to 350. You'd probably go like 300 to 320, right? If you were to go in a 4-beat increment or an 8-beat increment, then you go up by like 20 clicks, right? Sake of time. Okay, and then just one more for fun. Like that wasn't stressing my hands out or my brain out, but you could hear like maybe some of the rhythms weren't getting quite as perfect as they were at 300, right? So that tends to compound over time. So if you spend more time at the slower tempo, which is what I would do if I was actually practicing, then when you go faster, you won't have weirdness start to creep into your playing. Okay, right? Like, and that would be my practice session for today. I wouldn't feel the need to get to 200. I'm just getting my hands comfortable, and I'm just reading right now. Like, I read through, I'm like, okay, I know what it is now, right? My hands can play it. It's not show tempo, but I'm starting to introduce and here's the magic part. You do this today, and you go to sleep tonight, and when you wake up tomorrow and you practice it again, at 300 or 400, it took me, like 20 minutes to get to this point, but I wouldn't start at 400. I would go back to where I started, which was 300. Start from the beginning, right? And then instead of taking 20 minutes for me to get to 400, it might only take me 10 minutes or maybe even 5 minutes, and I'll actually even be able to do it better than I did it today, right? And that's how you practice. You have to start over from the beginning every day, but it just takes you less time to get to where you left off, and then you can go further. And then if you take days off, then that's where things get rusty, right? So I find that when you're learning things, you don't want to lose that momentum. Once you kind of get your brain in that flow of like, okay, this is how it works. The worst thing you can do is to have to relearn things that you've already learned before because you forgot it, because you took time off from practicing. That's always like oh, I'm wasting my time because I've already done this before, you know. So there's a question, and then I think we're gonna wrap tonight. Today's, it's the 10th lesson, so we went a little bit extra, but and then if there are any questions, any open Q&A questions, this would be the time to ask them. Okay. Oh, Dre says it had the Hertha 5-lit stuff. I don't remember that at all. What med app is this? This is, I should know what it's called. It's called, I don't remember what this is called. It's called TE Tuner, I think. I use this app every day when I was teaching, because if you're teaching band, the tuner is key. I definitely cannot do with whistling, but a smiley face lights up, which the kids love. I can light it up, I think, by playing the note. I mean, middle school, high school kids go crazy over that. I get crazy over that when I would practice trumpet and clarinet with that, right? But I find that you can program, like if we're doing 5-lits here, you can do this. I mean, and this is new. Like when I used this before they had any of these features, but they've updated quite a bit since then. They've got the dial mode setting. I mean, it's one of the metronomes. I'm like a metronome crazy person. I love collecting metronomes. I would still say this is like my go-to when I'm practicing. I find that the doctor beats tend to die too quickly with the 9 volts. These things can go forever on a single 9 volt. And then, like, if I'm teaching, I might use my phone or an iPad. But you can beat this thing up and not have to worry about, destroying your phone or your iPad. The cool thing about this, though, and in this instance it's super important, is that there's like a rock beat behind it. So it's, there's more groove and more feel than just like beep, 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 beep all the time. So Mike says, so you learn these 5 stickings before trying them against a quarter note pulse? Yeah, great point, Mike. That's what I would do. I would just play the grouping and be able to play it evenly like a stick control. Just like you would like a paradiddle. Like, you don't have to stick a paradiddle with a metronome right out of the gate. Right? When I first started teaching, like, hey students, this is a paradiddle, and I would have the metronome clicking, even though they were just working the sticking. The student is not thinking about the metronome, right? Because they're concentrating on that new sticking. The same way that you would be in this 5-lit if you're not familiar with it, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. And you can use the metronome, right? But that's not the priority. The priority is you've got good flow, good sound, all the notes are evenly spaced. You understand your hands doing this in the right. And I'm placing those 2 doubles in the left. And then I kind of get to a tempo. Right, and I go. So I'm using the metronome to facilitate my practice, and I'm not trying to cram myself into this metronome constraint that we have. It's like, you got to do it. The metronome is there to assist you, not to make your life harder. So, good question, Mike. All right. Man, today, there's too much talking, I think. It's all good information, I think. It's all stuff that I wish I could tell my students in a private lesson, but private lessons don't last this long. So, all right, guys. Real quick, I just want to say, if you're still watching, right, thank you so much. If you're catching this replay after the fact, awesome. You know, I know these kind of go on. Sometimes these longer interview things, I know for sure I don't have time to watch these things in the day. So I know if you're watching them in little bits and pieces, or maybe you're watching this at night before you fall asleep, so that you have something to fall asleep to. Thank you so much for watching. It's been really fun doing season 4 of these live streaming lessons. I've got a couple other projects that are happening in the mix right now. We're doing these. We're building out these institutional accounts for Drumline Chops, which is taking quite a bit of time. But also filming a bunch of lessons. I have not worked on my left-hand traditional course as much as I would like in the last week, but I'm gonna probably knock that out next week. So it is in its beta launch right now. If you saw that at the beginning of today's live stream, you can go to drumlineblueprint.com/courses for left-hand traditional pro. If you are taking these next couple months to learn how to play left-hand traditional, you're a tenor player, you want to learn how to play left-hand traditional, you're a pit player, you're a teacher that wants to be able to teach students how to do left-hand traditional. Maybe you already know how to play, but you just want to know how another teacher sets it up. I'm going to be doing a special session of like a live stream session with those left-hand traditional pro beta members. So if that's something that you're interested in, also you could check that out and join that group. And then once that's finished and packaged up, then we'll launch that at large to everybody that might be interested in that. So that's one thing. And then there's probably more. I should have written it down, but I'm so tired at this point. It's so late. And I'm just going to wrap it here. So thanks, guys. Thanks for season 4. It's been fun watching. If you have any questions or if I can help, send me a direct message. Let me know. And like, subscribe, follow, share. Share this out with all your friends on social media. Download the handout, freelessons.com. There's a bunch of other free lessons there from the past 3 seasons that you can check out as well. So let me know if you have any questions or if I can help. Please stay safe. And yeah, have a good week, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Christian. See you.